Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald, and I am so excited to be back interviewing the changemakers, inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo in the best way possible. This week, I interview the food bank Fab 5 CEOs that with their teams are helping to feed New Jersey. Do you really know how vitally important the food banks are in your area? If you thought the numbers of those living paycheck to paycheck was high 3 years ago, listen into this episode to hear how the need for food pantries and food distribution has unfortunately grown exponentially. In this episode, I interview Triada Stampas, President and CEO of Fulfill, Mark Valli, CEO of Wasiak, Bernie Flynn, CEO of Mercer Street Friends, Fred Wasiak, President and CEO of the Food Bank of South Jersey, and Elizabeth McCarthy, President and CEO of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, write a review, or stream this episode on all streaming sites. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day, Live It. Have a great week, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the fourth season of the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. It's hard to believe that I'm in 4 years of just talking to the most incredible changemakers, inspirers, and those who are disrupting the status quo around the world in the best way possible. And today, I have 5 incredible changemakers and inspirers who are feeding New Jersey. And I'm so excited to introduce all of you in a moment and read a little bit of your bios. But just a quick note, we have been downloaded in about 64 countries and 723 cities around the world. And that's because of all of you listeners. So take today's podcast, take a listen, and share it with someone you love as well. Okay, here we go. So first person that I want to introduce here is not only a friend and a mentor, but he is also the co-chair of this year's Changemakers Forum, and he is the CEO and president of the Food Bank of South Jersey, Fred Wasiak. How are you today?
Super, Jody. Happy New Year. It's good to be here.
It's wonderful to see you. And just a little bit of background here is the Food Bank of South Jersey serves 4 counties in South Jersey. Fred oversees all aspects of the organization: advocacy, operational efficiency, community engagement, staff enrichment, and board development. He is also the founder of Humanix Consulting. Since 2013, he has provided consulting, training, and keynote speaking engagements, development services for board, staff, and nonprofits. Fred, I'm just so happy you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jody. Nice to meet you.
Elizabeth is the president and CEO of the Community Food Bank of South Jersey. They provide over 90 million meals annually, along with wraparound services like job training, nutrition, education, hygiene products, and distribution. And I'm just so happy to have you here, Elizabeth. You're feeding tons of people across the state. So thank you for that.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And my next guest is Bernie Flynn, who I have the longest connection with. We just, before the podcast, talked about the fact that we know each other, Bernie, since 2010, right?
Yes.
Incredible. He used to be the CEO and president CEO of NJM. And now he's joined Mercer Street Friends as full-time volunteer CEO. He was drawn to Mercer Street Friends because of his leadership role in the Trenton Community School Initiative, Food Bank, preschool, and adult and senior services work. And thank you for the work that you're doing, Bernie. I'm so glad to have you on in a different role and get to connect with you here.
Yeah, great to be here, Jody. Thank you.
Awesome. And Triada Stampas, did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah.
Awesome. Triada, it's wonderful to meet you. You're the CEO and president of Fulfill, which serves Monmouth and Ocean County residents, just distributing 14 million meals to a network of 300 people through a soup kitchens, shelters, and community-based organizations and food pantries. Thank you so much for being here. So grateful to see you. And then Mark Valli. Mark, how are you?
Great.
Oh, awesome. Good to see you. Mark was a prior podcast episode interview, and I'm so happy to have you here again. You're the CEO of Wasiak, serving over 30,000 low-income individuals and families. And you're also handling education, employment, financial capacity building, health, wellness, volunteerism. And on top of all of the work that he does, he plays a mean guitar as well, right, Mark?
This is true. This is true. And by the way, congratulations on 4 years. It's a great accomplishment. And I remember the early days and conversations about kicking this off. So great work, Jody.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I really, really appreciate that. And I remember during that interview, you took out your newspaper clipping of you playing the guitar, and that was super, super fun to see. And I know you recently played at one of your events as well, didn't you?
Yep, we played "Living on a Prayer" because John Bon Jovi's a Jersey guy, and that's really that song is a testimony to Alice and New Jersey working class. So that's why we thought it would be fun to sing it.
That's awesome. So 5 incredible CEOs and presidents all doing work to make sure that our state of New Jersey doesn't go hungry. And so I have lots of questions, and there's just an incredible amount of energy from all of you. And Fred warned me that you all can get into a bit of trouble together. So I'm excited about that. That should make this fun. So all of you started somewhere else, and you wound up where you are today. What would you say brought you to now serving all of the incredible people in the communities that need your help? How did you wind up in your place? Because I know there's lots of people right now who feel like there are a lot of things that they would like to do in their life, and they're not exactly there yet. Did you ever think that you'd be sitting in the seats that you're sitting in right now? Mark, I'll start with you.
Yes. Early in my career, I made a conscious decision to move out of the direction of the for-profit world and into the direction of the nonprofit world. So this particular seat here in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, serving the northwest corner of the state, maybe not. Most of my early nonprofit work was done along the Northeast corridor in New Jersey. But I always wanted to, make my career about helping other people. So for me, it was always built into the cards.
Elizabeth?
Much less certain, although now obviously I've been in nonprofits for over 25 years, but started my career actually on Wall Street and then worked in New York City government for a while and kind of just lucked into my first position in a nonprofit. But once I was there, I was sold. And from that time on, have always worked in social services, not in food service specifically until this role, but in social services and communities living in poverty and systemic racism.
It's interesting, Elizabeth. Same thing. I always say nonprofit found me. I had no idea that I was going to be where I landed. So I think it does find people. Others know exactly their direction. Triada?
My story is a little bit more like Mark's. I think that I always knew that I wanted to do public service work of some kind. Like when I was a kid, I grew up, thanks to my immigrant parents, wanting to be a doctor. But as soon as I found out what Doctors Without Borders was, I was like, oh, I want to be that kind of doctor, the kind of doctor that goes to places where there aren't doctors, so that I can do that somewhere where I'd be needed. So I started kind of like Elizabeth, I started in government, not in Wall Street, thinking about public service from within our government. And that's really the vehicle where we collectively put resources to create the kind of society that we want. And I ended up in nonprofits kind of after a stint in government, but I always knew that the work that I wanted to do and contribute would be in service to people.
Beautiful. Bernie?
Yeah, mine similar to Mark. I mean, I always knew I wanted to do this. It's just that, I was a lawyer and had a family and knew the challenges of having credit card debt and not enough money, and should my wife have to go back to work, so I ended up in the insurance business, which is how you and I met, Jody, and never imagined being in the insurance business, but it was a very interesting area. And NJM Insurance Group was the best company to work for. I always say NJM is the closest thing to public service in a private corporation that you can get. But they made me CEO when I was 47. So it wasn't my company. So I was a steward, for 10 years. And then lo and behold, I had the opportunity upon retirement there to get into the nonprofit sector. So I didn't know I was going to end up at Mercer Street Friends, but I knew I was going to be involved in some way, primarily with an education bent. And Mercer Street Friends was perfect because Mercer Street Friends is the lead community school agency in the city of Trenton. We have staff in the schools there to help remove barriers to learning and partner with current district staff. So 3 schools where we're doing amazing work. And of course, we're the food bank for Mercer County, which is a huge piece of how we support the schools. So it all came together rather nicely, and I'm thrilled. All of a sudden, I'm 4 years in. I was the new guy, and now I don't have that excuse anymore. And this is a tough area. I mean, it's a brand new sector, and it requires top flight leadership. So we're very fortunate to have this group together in New Jersey, because I think New Jersey's doing it better than pretty much anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, and we're going to get to talking a little bit about how you formed this incredible camaraderie throughout the state and where this is leading as well. I definitely want to get to that, but I want to get to Fred. Go ahead. I would like to share, because I know your interesting story, and I'm interested to hear how you'll answer this question.
Well, first, let me just segue from Bernie and speaking on for all of us. There's no coincidences in life, and none of us went to school to be food bankers, if you will. But everything, what I found out, you really, and I think my segment was titled, "You Can't Fight the Plan." But if we, as we're getting to know each other over the last 4 years, 5 years, and Elizabeth has just added such a tremendous asset to all of us, that our paths were supposed to cross. I've learned so much from my colleagues here, and we've said this before: when the 5 food bankers of New Jersey gets together, good things happen. And so I've just been blessed that I didn't know really the food insecure world as much as I did when I said no 3 times to applying for this job at the Food Bank of South Jersey, and the 4th time my wife said, "Look, just see what happens." And it was the best thing that has happened in my career. Out of college, I was an educator, and then I spent 27 plus years in the YMCA. So I've always had this aspect of community service, but nothing as much as what we are doing here in New Jersey collectively. And so I'm blessed. This was part of the plan, and I tried to fight the plans before. I always got myself in trouble. So this time I went with it, and it's just been just a great. And to be part of this group is just tremendous. So good question.
Thank you. Thank you. All of you are doing incredible work, but all of you doing it just a teeny bit differently. So what I thought we would be great to do is to do kind of like what would be, and I'm not going to say 30 seconds, but what would be your elevator speech about your organization so that the listeners really know the difference, but also understand the impact. So obviously, Fred knows how I am, right? I gave you 12 minutes to speak at one event. We're not going to do that. We're not timing anybody today, but and I did. And he'll never let me forget the 12 minutes I gave him to speak at an event. But I'd like to just go around and hear that from each of you so the listeners truly understand a little bit more about your organization. Bernie, give us a teeny bit of your organization, but do you want to elaborate a little more on what you had shared before?
Mercer Street Friends is a Quaker-based organization founded in 1958. So we've been around 65 years. And the fact is that we have evolved over that time period, and we're all about food, family, and education. So those are intertwined services that we provide. So at our core, we're a social services organization, but the education piece that I mentioned before is prominent. We do a lot of family support work in Mercer County, and our geographic region is just Mercer County. And then the food bank has taken on a more important role year over year, particularly during the pandemic. And so that aligns us with all the food banks on this call today. But, we're trying to do things, better, more comprehensively for our neighbors in Mercer County. And it's a constant effort.
Mark?
So we're similar in structure to Bernie. We were founded in 1965, as a community action organization. So we have deep roots in sort of the LBJ, anti-poverty, Great Society programs. And that's how we were born as an organization. And we evolved to become an organization that created a food bank. So we were a nonprofit first, and later added the food bank element to our programming, similar to Mercer Street Friends. And both Bernie and I, in that way, are tied directly to Elizabeth and the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, essentially being born out of those efforts and covering our territory. Wasiak, we serve the northwest corner of the state with that anti-poverty work. So everything from literally, we run 9 Head Start centers. We are the WIC provider for several counties. We are the Feeding America Food Bank affiliate, serving several counties, energy assistance, affordable housing. We do all kinds of anti-poverty work, literally anything you can think of. And I think what's cool is we built the capacity at this point in our growth where we want to be the first call. If somebody's struggling, or they have a neighbor that's struggling, or a family member, they call us, and we will link them to the services that we have. And if we don't have them, we'll link them to other organizations so that they can get access to the supports and the services that they need to move from being in crisis to thriving. So that's who we are. That's who we've evolved to become a food bank. But as Bernie said, the food banking work has become increasingly important as we're seeing dramatic growth in demand out there with our pantries.
Thanks, Mark. Elizabeth?
Sure. So our story is kind of very different. Our founding story is somewhat famous. 49 years ago, out of the back of a station wagon, our founder, Kathleen DeChiara, just started giving out food in her own community, grown, as you said, to now serving over 90 million meals a year, which is kind of incredible. We have a warehouse in northern New Jersey in Hillside, and then another one in Egg Harbor Township to serve the 11 counties that we serve directly in New Jersey, as well as a pantry in southern New Jersey. But truth be told, as much as we're very proud of the fact that we distribute so much food, I think all of us would agree we wish there was less need, that we wish we were not distributing as much food because we were getting to the root causes of hunger. So our focus now has really been our 2 job training programs, culinary training, and then our warehouse training program, which is a newer one that's been very successful at getting people employed and therefore not to be food insecure, and our outreach for SNAP and other benefits. So there's so many things that people in New Jersey are eligible for and they don't realize, or they don't know how to apply. So we have large teams that are going out and doing that kind of work, as well as seeing food as medicine. And so we have diabetes programs and heart healthy food programs. So really just trying to get to those root causes of food insecurity throughout the state is our main goal right now.
Thank you. Fred?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's what a collective group. The Food Bank of South Jersey, as he said, we serve 4 counties in the South Jersey region. It's Burlington, Camden, Gloucester, and Salem. And we go from urban to suburban to rural, which is a challenge in all of those areas. And as we all can speak to. It's really around our 3 pillars. 1985, it was the Food Bank of South Jersey was founded, but it's we want to ensure anyone we're supposed to serve through our 200 pantry network that no one goes to bed hungry, and we provide health, nutrition, education, and awareness, so people can be resourceful in finding healthy food on a budget and preparing healthy food so there's less food waste. And the 3rd pillar is, which everyone's speaking to, is a sustainability. Is how do we help individuals find themselves in fulfilling sustainable lives and get to the root causes, because it's not hunger, it's poverty and all those systemic issues that bring that to the surface. And everyone has different entry points. And so, that's really, as Elizabeth said, we don't really, we are serving a lot, but we don't want to be. And so how do we, slow this down? So it's been a challenge, but, we're doing great work here collectively throughout the state. We're happy we have great partnerships and we have each other, and we have a lot of work to do.
That training piece it seems vital. The feeding piece is absolutely vital, but the training piece in order to get people to move up and out into the world to do what they can do on their own is tremendous. So thank you to all of you for doing that, because that's vitally important. Triada?
Thank you. So Fulfill is the food bank that serves Monmouth and Ocean counties at the Central Jersey Shore. And so we, help provide a meal tonight, food at home for tomorrow, and the resources for a better future. Our story is kind of the opposite of Mark and Bernie's organizations in that we started with food distribution. And there's a connection between Fulfill and Community Food Bank, because the founder, so Fulfill's about to celebrate its 40th anniversary, so 10 years younger than Community Food Bank. And when the founders of Fulfill realized through their own voluntary efforts, I mean, here's one of the wild things that's a part of our work. Hunger is often invisible. The piece that you see, I mean, it's like the bit of the iceberg that it's above the waterline. And so our founders started doing toy drives, clothing drives in the community, started collecting loaves of bread from local bakeries. And when they started doing that work, suddenly people just came, I mean, to our founders, it was like people came out of the woodwork and they suddenly realized and saw how much need there was. And their first stop was to Kathleen DiChiara, the founder of Community Food Bank, because they had heard about the work that she was doing in Newark. And she was like, can you bring that down here? Can you bring that to the shore? We think we need you. And her answer was, no, I can't do this for you. You can do this for your own community and for yourselves. I can help you. I can share what I know, but you've got to do this. And so, almost 40 years ago, got started as a food bank distributing food. And it's been over the decades that we've realized the as necessary for survival as the food that we provide is, it does not stop the cause of the problem. And so we have evolved. We have one of the country's first benefits outreach teams to help people connect to SNAP and help affordable health insurance, because we know that getting your own food at the grocery store is always going to be better than standing in line at a food pantry. And we have a culinary training program to help people get their foot in the door in a career path. Most of our students are second chance adult students who have not succeeded in other places. And this is a chance for them to get a start in a new path in their lives. So, we're structured very similarly to in terms of what we offer to, maybe Fred's Food Bank and Elizabeth's. And we do that, for Monmouth and Ocean County residents.
Well, the one thing I have to say is all of you have such passion. I mean, as I'm sitting and listening and all of you are talking, and there's so much animation and you're all just so embedded in the work, and it's wonderful. Pam 10 is a leader in IT enterprise solutions and staffing. They are driven to transform their clients' business performances. They do this every day by providing their clients with the best services and products like BizLego, an online community platform, and Colear, a unique learning management system. They also transform the lives of women and children through their associated nonprofits, SheTech, which supports women in and joining the technology field, and Sofkin, support organization for kids in need. Pam 10, technology for social good. Go to pam10.com for more information. Working together, right? Now you're all working together. I believe there's a conference that you have, right? This is your second annual conference coming up. There's a lot going on. And who would like to share a little bit about how coming together has really helped to create such a coalition for for New Jersey, because you've all done such a good job of coming together. I'll leave it open. Who would like to take this one? Don't all raise your hand at once.
I'll jump in because I'm
okay.
obnoxious. So it is like a therapy group. I have to say that. Before Bernie was the new guy, I was the new guy to food banking. And so, you really, it is its own industry in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot to it, a lot to understand. And, we meet on a regular basis, whether it's, on phone calls, Zoom links, or whether we actually get together for lunch a couple times a year, just so that we're touching base, comparing notes and sharing resources. I mean, there have been times when, we've literally, Bernie's had, catalytic converters stolen from his vehicle. So Fred had to provide him with vehicles. we've all had to share information and resources. And so I jokingly refer to it as a therapy group, but it is, because we're all facing a lot of the same challenges, and having other seasoned professionals with different varied backgrounds, but who understand the food banking world has really, really been important, at least for me, and I think to the rest of the crew here. And it's built strong friendships beyond just being colleagues. It's just strong friendships, but it makes us better. And I think that when through this conversation, you're going to hear that New Jersey really is, the food banking world here is ahead of most of the country. We're thinking about food banking 2.0. You heard references to that Triada made to food as health. We've got initiatives in that area. We're talking about how do we make our pantries more accessible and provide better choice. How do we get fresh fruits and vegetables and higher nutrient produce and meats and proteins into the hands of the people that we're serving, so that we can help promote good, healthy, balanced diets. All that work is happening with this crew right here, and we are, I believe, miles ahead in a lot of different ways of other food banks across the country.
Does anybody else want to go ahead? Try it, Triada.
I'll just add to what Mark is saying, like the relationships that we've built and the collaboration that we've built at the end of the day is to the benefit of the people we serve. There are no walls at county lines. So even though we have our distinct county regions that we serve, the people we serve cross those boundaries all the time. And the more we can learn from each other, the better we can be for the people of New Jersey who need us. The furthest west food pantry in Monmouth County is a mile from the Mercer County border. It would be foolish to think that people aren't crossing in both directions to get the food that they need. The parts of northern Monmouth County are seeing residents of Middlesex County coming in, and I'm sure there's a flow going the other way. And so the fact that we can collaborate, that we can share knowledge, we can share resources, our teams are working together now, means that the people of New Jersey who need us are going to be served better by us collectively.
I think in addition, it helps, we kind of have one voice when we're working with, say, our government partners. I mean, again, we're very lucky in New Jersey that our government partners are very supportive, much more so than other states. We have higher SNAP benefits, much more assistance from them. But I don't think they care where our borders are either. They see it as the food bank system of New Jersey. And that's really important because, as Triada said, the borders are fluid. Someone might live in Monmouth County but work in Middlesex, and it's easier for them to, come to a Middlesex pantry, whatever. But it just having that statewide network and us sort of as a united front with government, I think is important.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would say, I think historically, the food banks, not just in New Jersey, but across the country, years ago, were kind of siloed and kind of kept their heads down and fed their community and fundraised in their community. And, there wasn't a lot of strategic thinking, broader collaboration. And I think we're setting the standard in Jersey. I mean, Mark and I aren't bashful about our ignorance, in the food banking world. So we're always asking for help, and it's always there, and the communication and collaboration is just very strong. The kind of thing, it's not easy to have the kind of level of cooperation and collaboration that we have. You have to work at it. And so if you don't do a good job of that, you're liable not to serve your constituents, your neighbors as effectively as you otherwise could. And so, what you see, Jody, is, a really strong group, and we're stronger together, than we are apart. So that's really manifested itself, particularly during the pandemic and now coming out of it. But it's an effort, because it isn't where we came from as organizations, and now we're getting there. And I think it's the model for the future.
Yeah, that's and Jody, keep in mind that we are part of the Feeding America network of 5 of 200 food banks, 199 food banks across the country, serving every single county. But what's also exciting with this group, I mean, we probably have more fun when we get together. We try to have fun. We have to in the work we're doing. But the enthusiasm and the energy from us, really, it ripples down. You mentioned the state conference. We're going to our second annual state conference, Feed New Jersey. It's our colleagues at our food banks that we work with that actually organized, really took leadership in organizing this conference. And so the passion of working together, we also have a couple of state initiatives that we're all involved with that our teams at our represented food banks are more, I mean, they're involved. And so it's not just us, but that energy, and thank goodness, I'm new to food banking in a sense, but when we're amongst all our staff at this conference, we're not the smartest ones in the room. I'm not the smartest one in this room, but so we got great colleagues, but it really is. It's a cross-sectional from the different departments working on different initiatives throughout the state. That's really exciting for me, and I know for my colleagues here. There's things that are happening that I'll find out 3 weeks later. There's another conversation with a group of our teams, a meeting on different initiatives, and so it's really cool.
Yeah. And Jody, I was going to add something, which is, regular citizens, non-food bankers in the world, don't think of food banking as a system, right? They know their local food bank, or they've heard of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, or maybe they volunteered at a local pantry. But food banking is a system. It is a safety net that is nationwide, as we're all part of Feeding America. But that system doesn't work when we're siloed, like Bernie was mentioning. There has to be a free flow of information. We have to share best practices and resources and information so that the system works for the people that we're supporting. And I think that, that sort of understanding that we had a system, it just wasn't communicating very well until this group got together. So I think that's something that's unique to this state, and something that we've worked really hard to maintain and to build on.
So what do you think holds other states back from doing this? Because if there's food banks in other states listening, I want to give them, just kind of a little bit of a tidbit of what should they do? What's the first step for them to create this camaraderie? Because it's so vital and so important. It's a two-part question. Why do you think there's a fear of doing this? Or is it time? Maybe it's not fear. Maybe it's just time. Everybody's so busy and they stay siloed. And what would be a first step for them to do this within their own state?
We have Triada.
Oh, sorry.
No, I said we have Triada. So that's all.
Everybody needs a Triada.
Everyone needs a
not
Triada.
Everybody has a Triada.
Well, so I've been at Fulfill for 2 years, but Fulfill is my third food bank. So in this group, I came into the role with the most food banking experience. But what I was gonna say is I don't think it's a coincidence that every member of this Zoom has been in their roles for 5 years or less. So the shared newness, I think, has brought us together. And it also means that whatever baggage existed in the past, we don't own it. And so that's made it a whole lot easier, I think, to collaborate. And if you have other podcast followers in other states, just be new in your role if you can, right? Approach it as if you're new. And I think that opens some possibilities.
Beginner's mind.
And ask for help. Ask for help from your fellow food bankers. They were one thing that I found across the board. You ask somebody for help in this food bank sector, they will give you help. They're happy to share, the successes they've had, the insights, the experience. You've got to ask for help. And I think really fully engaging in Feeding America, which is a tremendous resource and keeps us all together, is a big piece of it. You see a lot of Feeding America stuff on TV, and our CEO, Claire Fontenot, there, particularly around the holidays, fundraising and such, but ask for help. I mean, that's what I did, and I got it. I got it immediately.
Yeah, I agree, Bernie. They're great. You call anybody at Feeding America, just say, here's something I'm facing, whatever. And they'll be like, oh, somebody in Ohio had that, or somebody in Colorado, and put you in touch immediately. And everybody's so willing to help and tell you not only their successes, but their failures, like where they've learned things along the way, which is important.
Well, even just locally, and the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, where Elizabeth's at, not too long ago, there was the toxic spill in the Delaware River that affecting the shorelines, and water. Water was a desperate need, and Elizabeth and Community Food Bank sent a whole tractor trailer load of water bottles to us. So it's as simple as, what do you need? Or I need help, and we're there to support each other. Feeding America, down to our local networks, to our local pantries.
So we all know, right, when it comes to nonprofit work, the most important thing is funding. And funding is everything that we all need. But besides funding, which is a challenge for every nonprofit everywhere, what is a challenge for you right now, and how can someone help your organization where you're located?
Go to our website.
Our volunteers, yeah. I mean, the volunteer opportunities, like we had 88,000 volunteer hours last year. I mean, that's an incredible amount of people helping, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So on our website, yes, we want donations, of course, but volunteer hours are really key to our operation.
Anybody
monetary
else?
Donations helps us purchase, the full plate, healthy, nutritious food. So as Elizabeth said, yeah, definitely monetary donations, but us too. We cannot do what we do without volunteers, hands on the boxes. That's very important.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just the same. The volunteers and the enthusiasm that they bring. Boy, oh boy, when I say hello to the volunteers each day I'm in the office, they are working. It's a team environment. They get competitive, like we're going to pack more bags today than we packed yesterday, type of thing. And if you're not careful, you'll get run over by a push cart. So that kind of experience is very worthwhile, I believe. And the pandemic really hurt us with regard to volunteers, necessarily so. A lot of folks could not be physically present with us. We're still coming back from that.
Yeah.
And of course, this time of year with all the stuff going around and people getting sick and COVID and coming back, the flu, RSV, all this stuff, volunteers, you're down a week on your numbers with volunteers. You're really behind. So it is something for the community out there to consider. It's very rewarding, and we need volunteers.
Yeah, and Jody, you're right that nonprofits always need funding. What your viewers may not know is that donations to food banks has dropped dramatically since the pandemic, while need has not. So we do not take for granted a single dollar or single dime that is donated to us by members of the community. We're serving collectively, I think we're all serving more people now than we were at the height of the pandemic without anywhere near the same kind of donations coming in. And so that's always, when I said earlier, part of the challenge in our work is that hunger is invisible. This really is a part of it. In moments of crisis and in disaster, people see it. And as soon as the disaster goes away, we are working again in this state of invisibility where people don't, members of the public who are themselves are not experiencing a struggle to afford food may not see or realize just how many people still are.
Well, I think one of the things that most of people outside of the food bank world, right, it's the holiday season is when you probably see like everybody gears up, right? We're donating turkeys or we're donating money. And then that invisibility happens again come the spring, especially the summer, right? Because I know that the kids get fed in school in many cases, and then they're home. And now there's this food insecurity. Mm-hmm. What message can you share with people to keep them aware that, there is no downtime in food insecurity, that they need to stay cognizant And I know I'm giving that, but what else can you share from your personal experience? Is there a story that stands out to you that could really share the work that you do?
Well, we're serving, as Triada said, during the height of the pandemic, we were serving 95,000 people a month. We're serving last 5 months, over 160,000 a month. There's 160,000 stories out there. And I believe, and I think we've talked about this, that prior to the pandemic, there were more food insecure people that we knew about. What the pandemic has done is it allowed us to, the most essential nonprofit in the country, and we still are. What the pandemic allowed us to do is to really bring awareness of what we do as a food bank that we're all talking about. We broke down the barrier of shame. We started to break down that barrier, and I believe part of these numbers now, that people may not feel as ashamed to come get help, so they can buy medicine, they can take care of electricity or children's clothing. We're seeing people in our lines now that may have not come to the lines before because they felt ashamed coming for food. But as Bernie said, during the pandemic, that changed everything. People instantly were down and out, and our food lines. But we're seeing more. We've doubled across the state of serving, and that's the silent that people just don't realize.
Yeah, and I think that hunger is in places people don't expect it, like college campuses. I mean, we partner with a lot of the college campuses for their pantries. And it's the difference between dropping out and not dropping out for many students. Yeah. Often tuition isn't always the reason people drop out. It's more often that they can't afford, the gas to get to school or the meals while they're there. And so I think people just breaking down that sort of stigma or the perception that the public sometimes have of who's hungry, seeing people in our lines at our pantries who are working. They just can't make it to the next paycheck as prices have gone up and rent has gone up and everything else. And it's so really, I think, just sort of understanding who's food insecure and not judging.
Yeah, one story that sticks out in my mind is actually he's a fellow as the director of one of our partner pantries. He tells the story of when the financial crisis hit in 2008, 2009. Both he and his wife got laid off. Now, they were working great jobs in New York City, corporate jobs. Making good money. But after a couple of months of not having that income, they realized that they had to go to a pantry to support their food bill and be able to pay all the other bills. That led to him changing his career. And so, going through that process and finally overcoming the shame that Fred referred to and saying, what, there is no shame. I'm having a tough patch here, and I need some supplemental support for my food budget, and I'm going to go to the local pantry. And that experience and the dignity that he was treated with and the respect that he was treated with ended up saying, what? I want to do this for my career. I want to make people feel as welcome and supported as I felt when me and my wife were struggling financially. And so that's one of my favorite stories that sticks out in my mind, because Scott is everybody. Any one of us could go through a layoff. We could have a health issue. We could go through, we could have a car accident. I mean, there are so many things that can just turn someone's financial life on its head in an instant. And, that's what we need to understand, that we can all be, Alice. We can all be the person that all of a sudden has to face struggles that we're not even thinking about right now.
Mark, just so people know, because they might not, what does ALICE stand for?
So ALICE is asset limited, income constrained, but employed. Sort of people above the poverty line, but who, as I was mentioning, are, one car repair, one health diagnosis, one layoff notice away from being in real financial dire straits. It's frankly about 40% of New Jersey.
And I don't think a lot of people know about ALICE, so that was important that we share about it. Anybody else? Any other stories?
I think that most people who have never had to use a pantry realize what it takes to get to a pantry, right? Like there, Fred talked about the pandemic for a lot of people really kind of taking the shame away. But it's a real thing to get to that point. And the thing that I am always struck by in the personal stories of the people that we serve is the real grit that it takes to get to a pantry line, to continue to receive services. I recently learned about a gentleman in Jackson, in Ocean County, in his late 50s, had been laid off, had been out of work, ran out of food at home, was down to the treats for his dog. And only then it took him getting to that place to look up a food pantry on the internet and call the closest one. And the pantry director thankfully picked up the phone, said, we're not serving right now, but come right away. He brought food home, not just for himself, he was actually taking care of his 90-year-old father. It took getting down to almost nothing before he could bring himself to seeking out help from a charity. Like, that is a hard thing that he had to overcome in order to get there. And then he got the help he needed. And now he comes regularly because he does not have a source of income that can keep him and his father fed without that support. But he had to get to a really, really low place before he could muster the grit to get himself the help that he needed. So I think, as adults, Elizabeth mentioned no judgment. As adults, we are taught, we grow up believing we lift ourselves up by our bootstraps and it's weakness to seek help, right? So we judge ourselves, and we that shame is internal. And so it really takes strength on the part of the people we serve to get the help that they need. And I always try to remember that, because the last thing I ever want your audience or anyone who is interested in the work that we do and being a part of it, the last thing I ever want folks to leave with is just pity, right? For the people that we serve. I want folks to always realize that it's a source of strength to get help, and that it is a blessing to get help when you need it. It's a blessing to be able to give help when others need it. That's something that binds us as humans. So that's my story, right? That I come away with. That's the common thread in all of the stories.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That really touched. I could see all of us. I mean, the stories you hear every day, and I'm listening as the outsider, and I've heard so many different stories, but still, there are so many tissue moments, I call them, where you just, and the other thing you mentioned that is really important to me, it's a mantra I say here, is that if we all could learn to just practice less judgment, we would all feel like we have the permission to truly be who we are. And that's something that somehow it's societal, this judgment piece, because it could make somebody go hungry because they're afraid to be judged. And that's horrible to think that that's what judgment has taught us. So, something to share with the listeners about practicing less judgment today in everything that you do. So we're coming into this new year, and you guys, you're all doing such incredible work, and you've shared the mission impact. I mean, obviously it's incredible, but I'd love to hear one goal. I never like to say resolution, because I think we can all agree resolutions last for, 60, 90 days. I don't know, it all depends. If it's exercise, it may not even be that long, or, I know we're all different. What's a goal that you're working with you and your team? Just one goal this year that you really are looking forward or hoping to accomplish and have a plan to accomplish. Mark, do you want to go first?
Yeah, we're working on an exciting initiative to get more fresh produce grown locally to our network of pantries. We have close to 100 pantries that we support through our food bank, and we forged an alliance with a group called the Food Shed Alliance, who do gleaning work. They go to farms and collect extra produce, and we have built a plan with them to be able to get that produce more efficiently to our pantry partners. And then step after that is they have property where they lease out at below market rates to young farmers to try to encourage entrepreneurial farmers to get more young people involved in the farming industry. And we are pre-purchasing. So we're basically giving these young farmers a contract saying, we will buy X amount of food from you if you can produce this food. That way they have a guaranteed market, and we can get that food directly to some of our pantry partners. So I think finding creative ways like that through those relationships is our goal for this year. And I think our goal moving forward. How do we get more fresh produce to people that need it?
It is so frustrating that to eat healthy costs so much.
Right.
And it is so frustrating. And produce should be something that we are able to afford to eat. When you're seeing tomatoes at $3-4 a pound, it's like, we're the Jersey tomatoes, right? How did we get that high? So it's an incredible cost just to eat healthy. So thank you for the work you're doing with that. That's amazing. Fred?
Yeah, in line with that, you're right. We're the Garden State, and we serve Salem County, Cumberland County, Community Food Bank. It's agricultural counties, and yet there's so many people food insecure. But I'll stay in line. The CSAs, community supported agriculture. So we partnered with a local farmer, similar to what Mark's talking about. That through the support, of our state funding, that we are looking to expand upon the produce produced from this local farmer this coming year. This past summer was a test pilot, and it worked tremendously. We had fresh produce picked in the morning and delivered to 4 or 5 pantries by that afternoon for distribution. And as I've learning in this food work, every day fresh produce doesn't become that fresh. But the fact that produce and protein are the top 2 requested items. We're looking to expand that to get fresh produce from the ground to the pantries for people by that day. So we're looking to expand that with our team's goal. So exciting stuff to come.
Really exciting. Elizabeth?
Certainly share those goals about fresher food and getting that out. But on a slightly geekier note, kind of using our data and our internal analysis, like we're really getting much better at really being able to analyze community level data and where the need is and what different requests there are. That not all food requests are the same. We have different people with different ethnic backgrounds, people with different tastes, things that, different types of food, halal food, kosher food. So really using our data to make our distribution center system more efficient is one of our really big goals, and understanding what the actual price of delivery is and how to just make everything sort of more efficient system and better able to serve our neighbors with things that they actually need and want.
I just want to say something about that. It's really important. I don't think we all think about it, but we've got lots of people who are gluten-free, peanut-free, and there's all these allergies and things like that. So when you're donating, whether it's food or whatever you do, make sure that, it fits the needs of people across the board, because we've got the gluten allergies and so many people are living with limited diets. And so it's vital. Triada?
So I am hopeful that 2024 will be the year that we break ground on an expansion of our warehouse. Our building was where our headquarters was built in 2001, and food banking 20 something years ago was really about boxes and cans, right? All the shelf stable stuff. And today it's much more about protein, produce, and dairy. It's those perishable items that are the most nutritious, but also the most expensive. And so if you're on a limited income, the hardest to come by. And so this expansion of our warehouse that we have planned is all cold storage, all freezer and cooler space, so that we can continue to increase the healthy, perishable protein, produce, and dairy items that our pantries are saying are desperately needed out there in the community.
That's amazing. I know exactly where your space is. So that's exciting. Really exciting for you guys and our community. Very exciting for our community. Bernie?
Yeah, I think for 2024, we at Mercer Street Friends want to do food banking better. we have done well in meeting the need in the community, but we're a small food bank, and we see the wonderful examples in Fulfill and Community Food Bank and South Jersey, and then along with Northwest Cap, we're both like the two little engines that could. We're trying to catch up to Big Sister here with how we operate, and we're far removed from paper and pencil. We're modernized in the warehouse. We're actually going to move into a new warehouse this year. But that continuous improvement has to happen, for us. And so we're building on, personnel infrastructure and physical infrastructure, and ensuring that we can adequately serve the needs in our Mercer County community. So it's about getting better, learning from our colleagues, getting help where necessary, and meeting the need.
Incredible goals. I mean, truly incredible goals. We'll have to come back in a year and see how everything has panned out and have an update from everyone, which will be exciting. On a funny note, though, I do have to mention this because I think it's important. I've been told that Mark likes to wear food socks all the time, right?
The king.
Yes.
So Fred and I have a friendly competition here in terms of who's got the silliest socks. And I have to say, Fred seems like a sincere gentleman, but when he shows me polka dotted socks, those don't count as cherries.
Donuts. See?
Not
Munchkins.
But Jody, the punchline today is that Fred is actually wearing hamburger socks and I'm actually wearing ketchup socks. So there you go.
And that was not planned, listeners. There was no conversation prior to this.
So much for healthy choices, Mark and Fred. What happened to the cauliflower socks?
Organic, 100% organic beef.
I thought
that's what I was going to say. Protein.
Yeah. What was that, Mark?
Doesn't ketchup still count as a vegetable for school lunches?
It does. I think so.
Not since the 80s.
Okay, good. Progress.
Oh, that's awesome. So, I can't thank you all enough. I could talk to all of you for quite a long time. But before I get to a last question, which is usually more of a personal question, as we leave our listeners with something about you, the person who's leading the organizations, is there something I haven't shared here that really you would like a listener to hear? Because I think it's important with the work that you do. So I'm going to open that up. Is there anything else? And each one of you, please share.
Yes. Bernie, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yeah. No, I got something I think we didn't really cover a lot of, and that is the tremendous support that the state of New Jersey provides to us. I mean, here we are, we're a good, solid, working group, right? We collaborate. We're doing what we need to do as food bank leaders, but the state of New Jersey, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, the rest of the leadership, Governor Murphy, they are right there with us side by side. And they have expressed that in, very specific legislation and appropriations to support us. And I think it's important to note that you can't do this just in the private sector. This is a public-private partnership that we have throughout the state of New Jersey. So those leaders, they're all bought in. There's no question about that. And we're exceedingly grateful. So I didn't want this to pass without giving that acknowledgement. I know everybody feels the same way.
And I think there's an initiative too with Horizon too, that I don't know if somebody wants to talk about as well.
Yeah, the Growing Healthy Pantries initiative that Horizon supports, as well as Feeding America actually supports also. And it's exciting. It's a real toolkit, a way for people to make their pantry, the best it can be. So like we're opening one in Garfield and Bergen County. It'll be fully choice, really all fresh produce, fresh protein, and just really following all of those guidelines and nutrition policy, but very much a joint effort. One more way we've all collaborated, and it's incredible to see it sort of coming into fruition now.
As Bernie said earlier, it's we're better together, and so the collective work with our state foundations, Feeding America, the support we need, and it's become unsustainable for nonprofits, charitable service organizations to take care of this hunger poverty problem. But we do have support here in the state. We do have each other, And collectively, the 5 food banks here, we're serving all 21 counties, over 900 pantries, if that's the correct number, fellow colleagues, millions of people, daily, weekly, annually, that we're serving. So we need all the help we can get in this journey together.
Yeah, and not to be shameless about this, but when you support food banks with your dollar, I mean, that goes a long way. It literally buys pounds and pounds of food for our neighbors who require support, supplemental support through the pantry system. And so we are, again, we're a very efficient system. That's what food banks are. We're a system to help government and private resources get channeled to people that need them. And so I think that, frankly, just supporting food banks, whether it's through your volunteer time, through your donations, is really important because it goes a long way to making sure that people can put food on the table for their families.
And I'll add, there really is a place for everyone in this work. The theme that we don't do this alone is absolutely true. We need our partners in government. We need our volunteers. We need our donors. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. We have a group of elementary school students who together, the 10 of them, run a lemonade stand from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend every summer. And they sell lemonade to benefit fulfill, and in the past 6 years have raised over $20,000 that way.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, little kids can get involved, right? And so they're sitting there pitching to their neighbors about why it's important that glass of lemonade will help kids like them. So there really is a place for everyone in this work.
Beautiful story. And so that's a huge amount of money for elementary school. That's why I say, everybody thinks, oh, if I can't write that big check, it's not meaningful. That is so not true. It doesn't matter the amount. I always say that whatever it is, it matters and it makes a difference. You don't have to count yourself out just because it's a $10 gift or a $100 gift. It's wonderful if it's 10,000, but if it's not, it adds up, over time. So the elementary school kids can teach us all that, right? That's a great story. You should get that on video, Triada. That would be a great story to share.
They're so cute.
So I want to thank all of you for being part of this. I feel like there's so much in the food bank story that can be shared. And this is in my book, and I hope you'll all come back to be continued as we share the work and you all grow. As leaders, you take on a lot of responsibility. You have staff and you have people that rely on you every single day. And one of the things that it's very important to me on this podcast too is the talk about self-care and then making sure that we fill our own buckets, because we can't fill everybody else's if we're doing so much for everyone else. So I try to ask the same question to all of my guests in the year. And I'd love to know, how do you take a breath and what do you do to ensure that you fill your own bucket? This is one that's the hardest, right? I feel like this is the one where everybody takes the real pause because this is about you.
I think we're waiting for you to ask someone to go first. I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, Fred, since you said that, it's on. You can go first now.
That wasn't a setup. I think we were waiting for your great podcasting direction here. But I'm happy to go first. We have each other to understand the role, not just a nonprofit, but the most essential nonprofit in the country right now, right here in New Jersey. I do look upon Bertie, Triada, Elizabeth, and Mark as part of, whether it's just relieving stress, a conversation, whatever, but great support. For me personally, it's I call it forest bathing. I take time out in the woods, hiking, outdoors, mindful practice on a daily basis. It does help me in that realm of self-care.
Great. I love that. Mark?
Yeah, I was going to say, if the question is, what are you doing to take care of yourself? I would start by saying not enough. But I think for me, it's similar to Fred. It's exercise and getting outdoors. Especially when the weather's crummy, right? Like when you do that, you know that you've braved the elements and you've done your body some good. So making sure that I spend time in the outdoors, getting the exercise that I need, that's really my refuge.
But Mark, I want to thank you for saying what you said when you started that, which was not enough. Sometimes we're not honest with ourselves when we're trying to do everything for everyone else, and then we have nothing left for ourselves. And as leaders or people in general, we tend to do that a lot, especially those who are very giving and are empathetic and trying to change the world, as you all are. So, that's why I asked the question as a reminder to the change makers across the world that you have permission to take care of yourself. Otherwise, we're all going to suffer if we don't, right? Triada?
I'll second a lot of what's been said. Getting outside, just moving, being in the moment, like walks with my dog. And I try to turn off my phone at night. Just literally just put it to bed before I go to bed. So that I can have time and space that is free of thinking about work, because this stuff can get really consuming.
Bernie?
Yeah, the work is very fulfilling. So, that it's important for me, and I think for all of us, to be involved in such impactful work. But other than that, I'm a walker, so it's similar to Fred, Mark, getting out and exercises. I just love to walk. I used to be a runner. Those days are long gone. I'm a walker. And as long as I can walk, I'm good.
That's great.
It sounds like we need a group hike, I think, because I think for
I
all
know,
of us,
wait a
that
second,
is
look
part
at
of it, 'cause same here. I mean, yesterday I went ice skating with my son who's home visiting from college, going hiking this week. Like, just, it's such a difference when you just get outside and sort of appreciate. So my family and outside really is what keeps me somewhat sane.
So a walking
Elizabeth,
meeting, it sounds like.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say that, and then Mark can treat for lunch afterward. This would be perfect.
So it'd be about time.
Actually,
Yeah, I
Mark,
know,
up
I know.
in Mark's part of the state, High Point. That's, if it snows, cross country skiing is something I would love to do up at High Point if we get a chance.
Oh, that's a perfect spot. I'll bring the snowshoes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally have a book called Circuit Hikes in New Jersey, and it's an old book, but it's got a bunch of really great, different, varied level kinds of hikes that we could pick from. Be fun.
That'd be
Yes.
fun.
All right, Jody, I think you got us onto something new here. Thank you.
See, that's the role of this. We're, to open new doors and new communication. This is good. I love it. I love it. So really, really quickly, Bernie, your website.
MercerStreetFriends.org.
Triada?
fulfillnj.org.
Elizabeth?
GFBNJ.org.
Mark?
Norwestcap.org.
And Fred?
Gosh, I get tongue-tied listening to all these. The foodbanksj.org.
We'll have this all up for everyone, so you don't have to memorize it, but it's important to to say it for those who are just kind of listening and not watching it via the video, which will be on YouTube. Bernie, Fred, Triada, Elizabeth, Mark, thank you for all of you for being change makers in the state of New Jersey and beyond. I'm honored to know and get to have spoken with all of you on the first episode of the 4th season of Today's the Day Changemakers.
Awesome. Thank you for having us, Jody.
Happy New Year, everybody.
So much.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. And I'm going to say what I say at the end of every single podcast. Today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps, small or large, are you going to take today to get yourself closer to your goals? Thank you again to the 5 incredible CEOs of the food banks across the state of New Jersey. Again, thank you for feeding our state. I truly appreciate it, and I know all the residents do. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.